Psych! I didn't make The Good and the Bad and the Ugly better. It's impossible. It's a perfect film. Come on, guys. But what I am going to talk about is how the themes from The Good and the Bad and the Ugly apply to the greater scope of life. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss it. So of course, when we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're talking about the most famous Western, Sergio Leone, spaghetti Western, Clint Eastwood, fantastic film. But what makes them good, bad, and ugly? I was thinking about this when I was watching the film the other day, and I think I have an answer. And it's not specific for that film, but it's specific for the greater scope of life. So good, we'll start there. What makes Clint Eastwood's character good is that he has both a consideration and a respect for human life. So in the movie, and comment down below if I get it wrong, but I think, if I remember correctly, he doesn't actually kill anyone that isn't trying to kill him in return. So that's his sort of moral code of the film, and that's where he both considers human life and has a respect for it. He's not just blindly going around killing people like they did back in the old Western days. So what makes somebody bad? What makes the bad bad? Well, there's a consideration for human life. There's an understanding that it's a real thing that has real consequences, but there's still no respect for it. In the movie, for example, the character enjoys taking life. He enjoys watching people suffer, torturing people, and he deep down still knows that there's a human life there, but he has no respect for it, even though he's aware of it. So that's what makes him bad. And ugly is just sort of the ignorance of the whole situation. There's not even a consideration of life, which inherently means it's impossible to have any respect or disrespect towards it, because it's not even something being considered. And that's what makes it ugly, is that there's, the wind kind of blows whichever way it does, and there's no real remorse one way or the other about it. So that's what actually makes these characters good, bad, and ugly. And so the greater application to our life is that it's just consideration and respect for a particular thing. So let's move on. The next whiteboard is going to talk about applications for this, so we'll get into that right now. Okay, so now the actual applications. Where are we in our life either good, bad, or ugly? We've got the obvious things. We've got politics. We've got religion. Do you consider other political beliefs? Do you consider other religions? And then do you have respect for them? It doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree, but is there a consideration and respect at the very least? That is what, as far as I can interpret from the film, what makes something good. So where we get into the gray area is the people who have a consideration but no respect. So a lot of clickbaity, rage bait YouTube videos of people that just blatantly mock other religions, blatantly mock other political views. That is a consideration but no respect, because they are aware enough to consider that this is a different political view or a different religious belief, whatever, than my own, but there's still little to no respect towards it. And that, I think, is quite bad. The ugly side of things is just, kind of being ignorant towards politics and religion in general, not really caring one way or the other. It's not good or bad, it's just kind of ugly, because there's no real stance about it. So we can take that concept of good and bad and ugly and consideration and respect and apply it to a bunch of different things. So the big one, I think, is time management. So do you have a consideration and a respect for your time and how you use it? So something like social media, TikTok, YouTube. I hate to slander YouTube while I'm on YouTube, but these are the things that we consider but don't really have respect for how they actually take up our time. Like, we often get in a black hole of algorithms where we're just watching one video after another, and we know that it's taking up our time, but we're not respectful of the time that it's taking up, and we get caught in a black hole. There's things we do know that takes up our time, and so we have respect for it. Things like doing the laundry, for example. We know that takes time, and we kind of know how to manage that time, partially because we don't like it. That's part of what makes it easier to have respect for the actual time that it takes to do laundry. But there's still more respect given to the time put into doing laundry because we have consideration and a respect for how much time it actually takes. So think about that as you go about the week. Think about what things you're doing that may take up your time, that you're aware takes up time, things that you're unaware of takes up time. That would be more of the ugly side of things. Things like watching TV. We don't really, those more pleasurable things, we don't really consider a waste of time because they're pleasurable to us and we enjoy them. And so that's sort of the ugly side of things, is we're not actually considering how much time it takes up. So we can't even begin to have a respect for how much time it actually takes up. Some other things, for example, I don't have to go into all of them, but if you want me to do another video on all of these individually, just comment down below. Human life, that was the main theme of the actual movie, was a consideration and respect for human life. Technology in particular, considering how we can use technology and then having a respect for the value of it. So something like ChatGPT, we have immense consideration for, but I don't think everybody really has a respect for how valuable it can be. A lot of people do, but some people are not quite using it fully as the tool that it can be. And so that's sort of the bad side of things, of having that consideration but not fully having the respect for it. Art and ideas, just, something like a Jackson Pollock painting. A lot of people call it just splattering on a canvas, but they're still kind of aware that it's a famous painting, so there's a consideration for it, but there's no respect for it. Similarly with music, like, it's a big debate amongst musicians, like what kind of music you like and blah, blah, blah. We always consider it music, but there's not always that respect for it. So that's where, the good versus the bad comes in. And there's some people who, like Jackson Pollock, for example, don't even consider it art, and that's just the ugly side of things. There's no consideration, so you can't even begin to have a respect for it. So that's the actual applications. Let's move on to why any of this actually matters in our lives. Okay, so why should we actually consider any of this? Why should we look at things through this lens of good, bad, and ugly? Well, I think that's because if we're not looking at it through this lens, then we are just inherently ugly. And that's sort of the world we've created now, is it's an inherently ugly world where there's generally little consideration for things to begin with. And as we've said, when there's no consideration, you can't even begin to have any degree of respect or disrespect towards a thing. You're just ignorant, unbiased towards whatever the thing may be. So the world that we've created is sort of inherently ugly. The flip side of that is that once we do begin to have a consideration for things, we're inherently then bad afterwards, I think, because being good is actually the hardest part. So the reason I say we're inherently bad once we move on from being ugly is because, sort of like in the political spectrum, we begin to actually recognize and consider opposite opinions, but still have no respect for it. And that's where the bad side of things comes in, because we consider it, but we have little to no respect for it. And that's why being good is hard. It's hard to be good, but we should all strive to be good. Being good is what we really should strive for. I really do believe that being good starts with the internal self. You know, if we talk about body, mind, spirit, all of that is good things. It's a consideration and respect for your body. It's a consideration and respect for your mind. And it's a consideration and respect for your spirit. So getting all of those three components good is what allows you to then, at the very least, in your own internal world, be good. And then I really think that'll project onto the rest of the world. So why we should consider this, I've said before, my goal with my band, Church Burglars, I got wristband on, Church Burglars, there it is to change the world through my music. And that starts with striving to be good. Are we going to fall short? Yeah, of course we're going to fall short to be good. But failure is when you stop trying. As long as you keep going, like, you'll never fail. So that is my take on the good, the bad, the ugly, how it applies to our everyday lives. Thank you for tuning in. I like the clickbait titles, I really do. It was fun to make the thumbnail. So all my videos are going to be clickbait now. I'm telling you that now. But they're not entirely going to be clickbait. It's going to be a little relevant, but they're just fun to make. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Strive to be good. Don't be bad. Definitely don't be ugly.